Exams are an incredibly stressful time for everyone. I mean, I remember in my final year at school, as well as in university now, sitting in the library wondering, okay, what can I do? What can't I do? And freaking out about the questions and how harsh the markers are going to be and all that sort of thing. And I realized that, well, maybe a lot of you other people are experiencing the same thing. So I thought I'd sit down today and make a video giving you some of the tips that I use for stress management, as well as some of the very successful people who I know and have worked with as well. For a bit of background, my name's Fionn Parker. I graduated from high school with an ATAR of 99.95, which is like the top mark that you can get in Australia, or at least in New South Wales. And I'm also editor-in-chief of Catch Up with Top Achievers, which is a study guide designed for particularly HSC students, but applies to everyone all over the world, kind of teaching these study strategies as to how to cope with the exams and how to get yourself through these challenging times. So with that in mind, let's begin. So the first tip that I have, and it's a little bit counterproductive to the title of the video, but it's an important caveat to remember, is that a little bit of stress is actually a good thing. We've all heard the saying that diamonds are created under pressure, and I think that a little bit of pressure that you give yourself with that stress is actually a great motivating factor in order to get you to work. I think a few of the master procrastinators of you out there might be like, well, this is actually probably going to be helpful for me, actually experiencing that stress. Now, obviously, we don't want too much of it, and we'll get onto that later. But if you're stressing a little bit, it's actually a good thing in order to push you through and to get you to work. So I think that don't stress about stressing too much. The next tip that I have, and it's probably the most important one, or the one that works for me best at least, is to try and put everything into context. When you're studying for exams and when you're at school, I think that we have a penchant to make these issues or these exams become almost our whole world. It's so all-encompassing. I mean, I remember in my final school exams even dreaming of my essays in my head as I was asleep. But I think that if you can just take a step back and go for a walk or do something that makes you actually think and realize that there's so much more going on in the world outside. I mean, for example, if you're doing your high school exams, there are so many other pathways into where you want to go, that realizing the fact that this is not the be-all and end-all will actually help so much. There is so much going on in the world at the moment. I mean, if you just look at the coronavirus crisis or anything that is just happening outside of these exams, it makes you realize that this is not the biggest issue in your life. There is so much more that is going on. And when you take a step back, you realize that there are lots of successful people who have failed exams. I mean, even I have failed exams before. And I think that when you realize that it's not going to be the end of the world, then that's so helpful. And I know you hate people telling you that because it feels like it at that point in time, but giving it that little bit of context is super important to dealing with the stress that you may feel around exams. The next tip that I have is be organized. And the reason for this is because I think that one of the key sources of stress for a lot of students is feeling like you're not in control, feeling like you haven't done enough to prepare, and feeling like the exams are going to be too much for you to handle. Being organized helps that a lot. And I have one kind of main method that I use for these, and it comes in two prongs. Firstly, I use a calendar. Writing down all of my assessment tasks is so helpful in visualizing exactly when everything is on and when everything is due, and it becomes much less overwhelming. I also write down, for example, when I'm meeting up with friends to go to the library, and even writing down things like going for a run. All of these diarized in my calendar become tasks that need to be achieved and make me feel like I'm doing something with my day. The other thing that I use is a to-do list. So we have a resource which combines both of these things, and I've left it in the link below. And in this to-do list, I just write down all of the tasks that I want to achieve for that day, but they're not timed like in the calendar. So you've got your timings on the left and your to-do list on the right. And the feeling of crossing off both of those things as you move through the day and using it in conjunction is so powerful for reducing stress, because I feel like I'm achieving something. I actually am achieving something. And that means that I'm moving forward, and I'm much less likely to be stressed because I feel a lot more in control. The next tip that I have is find space to take breaks. Now, this is super important because, as I said before, when we're studying for exams, it almost feels like it becomes your whole world. And a really good way to kind of step back and put it in perspective, or at least to kind of clear your mind, is just to take a break where you're not even thinking about exams at all. Hang out with friends and talk about the football. Go for a surf, go for a run, go for a walk. Program time into that diary that I was talking about before, just for you. You don't have to be studying every second of every day, and actually doing so is going to be counterproductive because you're going to become more tired and more jaded in general with the exam process, as well as stressed. When you go for walks, when you go for a surf, when you go for a swim, and you're concentrating on something other than exams, it puts it in perspective, and it also reduces stress because you're doing something that you enjoy and you're realizing that you don't need to sacrifice everything for success in these exams. So it's super, super important to find that time to take your own space. Maybe don't socialize with anyone, and to just think about things that aren't directly relevant to those upcoming exams that seem so terrifying at the moment. The next tip that I have is have faith in yourself. I think that one of the biggest sources of stress in exams, particularly for me, is going in and feeling like I'm not going to be good enough, I'm not going to be prepared enough, and this exam is just going to kick me in the head. It's almost a type of performance anxiety. And I think that if you just go, I can deal with this. I am good enough, I am strong, I am smart, I am intelligent, and I can do this. Actually revving yourself up, going, come on, I believe in myself. I mean, sometimes I literally will shout in the mirror in the bathroom while I'm studying in the middle of a study break. Come on, you can do this. And even though it seems a little bit silly, hopefully no one is watching. If they are, it's a little bit embarrassing. But if not, you're just revving yourself up to actually believe that you can do it and push through, because you can definitely do it. I 100% guarantee. And having the faith in yourself to do that is so important in addressing that stress. It's easier said than done, I completely agree. But just know that you can do it. I believe in you, and you can 100% get there. And it will reduce your stress so much, having that mindset of self-belief. It almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it also reduces a lot of stress along the way. The final tip that I have, guys, is speak to others. I think that these tips that I've given you will be a great starting point for dealing with some of that stress, but a lot of the time it may not be enough. If you feel like it is getting too overwhelming, there are so many incredible resources out there that are designed to help you and to aid you get through these, what can be very challenging times. I'll leave a link in the description below as to some great resources and hotlines you can access if you are feeling like it's getting too much. Otherwise, you can just speak to parents, friends, whatever. People have gone through what you're going through right now, and they can all have their own kind of tips and suggestions for helping you deal with this. Alright, perfect, guys. That's the end of the video. Hopefully it helped. Please comment what you'd like us to make more videos about, because I will be generating some more over the coming weeks as to kind of how to deal with these exams and that sort of thing. So if you found it helpful, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. I'm also interested in what your sources of stress are, and if you have any other tips that could help other people, please leave it in the comment section below as well. Thanks for watching the video, and have a great day.